Now, back to Kevin at 7 with Kevin Bartnett.
And we are back. Okay, so I just wrapped up some NFL talk. Now, moving on to some basketball. After watching my New York Knicks yesterday, that was horrible. You don't let the Charlotte Bobcats come into Madison Square Garden and beat you, no matter if Tyson Chandler is in or out. The Knicks just got some really bad news. Tyson Chandler is out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken shin. Even with Tyson Chandler, who's the Knicks' best defensive player, the Knicks' defense stunk. And this is a huge hit for the Knicks. They're going to be forced to play Kenyon Martin and Amari Stoudemire more than they want to. And if the Knicks want to be in the playoffs, right now they're not a playoff team. They're playing terrible right now. They got smoked by Minnesota at home. That was a nail biter against Chicago. Derrick Rose, that was a great shot that he hit on the runner on the baseline, but the Knicks defense should not have let that happen. And they lost last night to Charlotte. Like, what are they doing? And they almost blew a 25-point halftime lead to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was leading it in the fourth quarter. I don't know what they're doing, and it's really frustrating right now. They have a lot of work to do. I think they gotta find someone, honestly. And in 4 to 6 weeks without Tyson Chandler, that's a lot, honestly. With it going without a guy of his caliber. I don't think that they should play Kenyon Martin and Amari Stoudemire that much, because I think they will make the playoffs eventually. They'll get on some kind of roll and will make it. Because they haven't had J.R. Smith yet. As much as people get frustrated with him, he's a good player, and they are better with him on the team than without him, as it's showing. So they do need him, but I'm just still mind blown by how bad that they've been playing lately. 2 years ago, the Knicks were a top 5 defensive team with Chandler. Last year, they were a mediocre team, but under Woodson, they had been definitely much better than when D'Antoni was the coach. Now it seems like D'Antoni all over again. And if the Knicks keep this up, maybe even midway through the year, I might consider removing Mike Woodson, getting a guy like George Karl for the Knicks. But Woody has done a really good job since he's been with the Knicks. He has done a wonderful job. He's off to a rough start this year, but you don't fire a guy after 4 games. The Lakers did last year after 5, but they're the Lakers, and that was a bad decision, I thought. So, and Mike Brown's back in Cleveland, where he should have never left in the first place. So, anyway, just some scores right now. Charlotte, who I said had no business beating the Knicks yesterday in Madison Square Garden, are actually up 14 on Toronto. Big game in Indiana, as the Pacers are ahead of Chicago Bulls right now. At the end of the first quarter, 23-15. The Orlando Magic, who had a nice win over the Brooklyn Nets a couple days ago, leading the Los Angeles Clippers 29-20, and the Washington Wizards are leading by 12 at the start of the second quarter against the Philadelphia 76ers. Surprising Philadelphia 76ers, to say the least, who started out 3-0, but then they dropped one. They just dropped one. But I want to say this. I thought when Philadelphia drafted Michael Carter-Williams that they said that was the best pick of the draft, and he would be an all-star at least twice. Michael Carter-Williams is off to a for Philadelphia. Syracuse product, if you don't know. I'd said that he would be a great 6 man. He could definitely make an all-star team or two, but he has played out of his mind this year. He had a rough game the other night. I forgot who they played against, actually, but as much as I'm a genius I'd like to think I am, I don't know who every single team I don't know who they play every single day. So, Philadelphia, though, off to a very surprising start. Many people, including myself, thought that they were going to be the worst team in the league, but they have shocked many people. They got on a 19-0 run to start their game against Miami, and they held on to beat the Heat. So the Heat off to a little bit of a rocky start at 3-2, but they're still the Miami Heat. They're going to find ways to win eventually. Remember last year they didn't have a phenomenal start, and then they ripped off 27 in a row. So Miami, they're not going anywhere. Other teams, I'm going to pull up the standings right now. Other teams, Minnesota Timberwolves, now, I got standings coming up now. Minnesota Timberwolves are another team that are surprising a lot of people right now. They were 3-1. They dropped one last night. But when I saw them playing against Knicks, they're a very good team. Rick Adelman's a very good head coach. He never has really gotten a lot of respect throughout the NBA. But he's an 1,000-win coach, and he was a good coach in Sacramento. He was a very good coach in Houston. Great coach in Sacramento. But that right there, Rick Adelman deserves some credit this year for the Minnesota's very good start. The Los Angeles Clippers are 3-1. I was in the minority actually. I thought the Los Angeles Clippers got a little bit worse when you lose a guy like Eric Bledsoe. I don't think your team gets better, but a lot of people thought they did get better because they got some really good shooters that complement Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. Well, DeAndre Jordan has fared excellent under Doc Rivers. That was if anybody who I'd said would benefit from Doc Rivers coming, it would be DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan, if you don't know, is one of these centers who has all the potential. He's an athletic freak. He has the potential to be maybe like a Dwight Howard on defense, and he's very much like his counterpart Blake Griffin when it comes to athleticism and dunking and all that stuff. He's got all-world potential, but he hasn't really lived up to it. He's a good player, but not a great player. But he's benefited tremendously from Doc Rivers. So, in the Western Conference, though, you have all these teams that are 4-0. You have one team, Houston, that is 4-1, and then you have 6 teams that are 3-1, and then Oklahoma City at 2-1. That's just if you're going on the playoff standings right now. The most disappointing team right now, I think, though, in basketball, that's not off to a good start. I think my Knicks obviously are up there. Brooklyn at 2-2, not too impressive. A start for them. Winless teams, we got Washington, not a good. I thought Washington was going to be in the playoffs, but they're off to a 0-3 start. Boston, nobody thought that Boston would do good this year. They're 0-4. Denver surprising a lot of people under first-year head coach Brian Shaw. The former Laker, they're 0-3. They 3 team at home last year. And they lost in the first round to the better Golden State Warriors, who were a better team. The Golden State Warriors were absolutely a better team. But that cost George Karl his job, which I thought was a huge mistake. And then Andre Iguodala left for Golden State. So once Andre Iguodala, Denver, I knew Denver was in big trouble. And Utah is 0-4 right now. Just some winless teams to ramble off in the NBA. Chicago's 1-2 also, and Chicago's got a game right now against Indiana. Indiana, who's 4-0, and I'm going to tell you right now, Frank Vogel is hands down my favorite coach in basketball. When I saw him play again, they had a lot of close-ups of him against the Knicks and like in the team huddles. Frank Vogel, I tell you, was always incredibly encouraging. I remember in Game 5, the Knicks were clearly outplaying them, but they were still they were in it. And Frank Vogel said to his team, the fact that we are down by 6 points to how bad we've played, man, we could win this thing easily. And that's what if I was a player, that's what I want to hear from my coach. He's done very well since he's got promoted to the head coaching job, Frank Vogel. So yeah, I could see why the Indiana Pacers are 4-0. I said that they were definitely the closest team I think that can take out Miami in the Eastern Conference. And they're playing excellent right now. They're not doing anything fancy. They're just playing really stifling defense, though, which I love. Their points allowed is 85 points a game, so Indiana has really lived up to the hype. Paul George is on his way to being a superstar. He's already a star player. Paul George is going to be a superstar in the league for a long time. Big shooting guard. He can play small forward. I think when he gets a little older, he'll be able to. He's only 23 years old, Paul George, so when he gets a little older, with his size, he can even move down low in the post. His post game does need some work, obviously, but he's a guard right now, so he's 23. Let him play guard, and then I think when he's going to need a post game, he definitely he definitely could play the 4 in the near future, but not right now. Utah and Boston, the 2 winless teams are underway, so that will end tonight for one of the 2 teams. I would hope Boston wins and has somewhat of a decent season because I do not want Boston to get Andrew Wiggins, the highly touted prospect who is entering his freshman year at Kansas, and many people are calling Andrew Wiggins the next LeBron James. So, yeah, that kind of scares me a little bit when you're going to have to play Boston a lot. So, also, people were asking me, to address one thing in the NBA, people were asking me if I think that the New York Knicks should trade Carmelo Anthony if the Knicks aren't going to clearly have no chance of winning a championship. And I think the answer is yes. He said he wants to test out free agency earlier, and then he said he wants to retire a Nick. Well, if you really want to retire a Nick Mello, let us rent you out, get some good players, and then you come re-sign with us. That's, I think, what should happen if he really does want to retire Nick. But I don't believe him, though, because he only said days before that he wanted to test free agency. So I don't think the Knicks, he is a max player anymore, though, Carmelo Anthony. Tim Legler pointed out something great. He took 28 shots last night, and he got 32 points. If you need to take 28 points 28 shots to get to 32 points, you're off your game a little bit, man. A player of Melo's caliber should shoot 50% every single night. Um, that's maybe 45, 50 points on 38 shots. You can maybe hit about 19 or 20 of those. That should be 40, 45, 50 points right there if you take that many shots. But yeah, he hasn't been doing it. Since the Indiana series last year, he had trouble hitting shots, him and J.R. Smith. So I'm anxious to see what happens when J.R. Smith comes back, though, because maybe J.R. Smith will be that, can provide that secondary scoring the Knicks totally need. I still believe the Knicks are a good team, but when J.R. Smith is your second best scorer, you're not a championship team. You're not going to win the NBA Finals. Are they similar to the '94 Knicks? I read an article that said they were similar to the '94 Knicks, where they had an erratic secondary. They had a great number one scorer, like they compared Anthony to Ewing, and then they had the erratic number two, like John Starks versus J.R. Smith. The tough defender Tyson Chandler, comparing him to Charles Oakley. I can definitely see the comparisons. I don't remember it because I was obviously 2 years old. Don't really remember a lot when I was 2, but when you see the comparisons, I could definitely see it. They do compare the '94 Knicks, but that was in a different era. This is a very different era right now in basketball, and they're not a championship team right now. The Indiana Pacers do look like a championship team. I think that if the Knicks were to run a team like Indiana, they'd lose again in a 7-game series. So, but it is a long season. We're only about at most 5 games in for some of these teams. So, that's all I have to say about basketball right now. It's definitely a long season. Off to a good start. Some teams are outperforming people. Some teams are not living up as much. But can't wait to see what we've got moving forward. All right, that does it for my basketball talk. I'm going to take a short break. I'll be right back after this. Thank you all for tuning in.
Hi, this is David Wright, and you're listening to WICR.